Alright, so what is this video about? As everybody knows, it's been a nice COVID winter. Haven't really been able to travel too many places. Haven't been able to do a whole lot. So I've been looking for something else to do around the house and decided, why not make a sim racing rig? So I've used a bunch of lower end racing wheels in the past, and until they inevitably broke, they were always a lot of fun. So I thought I'd get back into it. And for anyone that's tried doing something like this in the past, you know it can be quite tricky to get everything set up just right, to work just right. There's a lot of different variables that go into it. In the past, I would just take the steering wheel, throw it on the desk, put the pedals on the floor, and rock with that. Maybe use a TV tray or something. But this time I thought I'd maybe do something a little bit more legit than that. So I thought I'd buy and build something a little bit more substantial, and why not make a time lapse of the assembly and show you my thoughts. So enjoy. Here it is.
The frame is all aluminum extrusion from a company called Rig Metal, and so far I've been super impressed. At first, putting everything together can seem a little daunting because no instructions are included. But once you figure out the basics of how the parts go together, assembly is fairly straightforward, and you can put it together simply from pictures of the rig found online and on their Facebook page. But if that's a downside to getting a rig of this quality at this cheap of a cost, that small sacrifice in hand-holding is well worth it. I also got the seat from them, which can tilt back and forth, and it can translate back and forth.
So why did I get specifically this rig?
So with this type of setup, with the aluminum extrusion, you can make infinite adjustments to everything. You could move this back and forth, you could change the angle, you could change the position of the pedals, you could change the position of the seat overall, you could change the position of this vertically, horizontally. Yeah, basically anything you could possibly want, you could customize with this type of setup. You could also add additional components if you want a shifter or something else. It's very easy to do. And the unique cross-section from the aluminum profile, combined with all of the thick gussets that have dual support, results in an overall chassis that is extremely stiff. You want a rigid chassis for a racing sim because the wheels can output a lot of torque, and any flex in the structure is going to take away from the immersion in the game. This is just the standard version of the rig. They also make an even beefier version, but this version worked great for me. And if you think you see some stuff rattling around here, that's not really due to flex. This thing is rigid. The only reason you got movement is because I didn't bolt the freaking thing to the floor. For the wheel, I decided to go with Fanatec. The wheel is technically two products. The wheel base, which houses the electronics, motors, and gearing, and the actual wheel itself. You can kind of drive yourself crazy on the Fanatec site trying to figure out exactly which wheel and base setup to go with. They have a whole bunch of different options and different combinations that you can go with. For me, I just ended up going with one of their base entry-level versions. However, they definitely make some really nice stuff, and these entry-level versions are definitely still a level above what you would find from a typical Logitech style wheel setup. The base is the CSL Elite version, technically licensed for PS4. I intend to use this only on PC for now, but getting the PS4 version gives me the flexibility to use it for the console in case I decide to go that route in the future. The base is a single motor that's belt driven as opposed to the helical gearing setup on a typical Logitech G29. This means the setup as a whole is substantially quieter when you move the wheel around. It's also substantially more powerful than the Logitech G29. It can output about up to 6 Newton meters of torque, which is about 3 times as much as the Logitech G29. However, the performance of this wheel is still nowhere near the performance of a direct drive wheelbase, which is considerably also more expensive. The wheel itself is Fanatec CSL Elite P1 steering wheel. This is Fanatec's cheapest wheel, marketed for the Xbox platform technically, but it's still compatible with PC and PS4. The wheel itself is wrapped in Alcantara and it feels great. The spokes of the wheel are brushed aluminum. The whole wheel itself feels pretty stiff, pretty rigid, and it has a great look. The biggest gripe I have so far with the wheel is its connection to the wheelbase. It might be a combination of some plastic parts at the wheel hub or the bearings in the wheelbase, or maybe both, but during intense cornering, sometimes you can hear some clicking or creaking noises. Looking around online, it seems like this is a pretty common issue, and just due to the material construction and design approach from the wheel. It's a bit of an annoyance, but it's not really a game changer or a huge issue. It's held in place on the base by a singular screw onto the shaft that goes into the base, and supposedly can be mitigated slightly by tightening that screw just a little bit more, but in the Fanatec instructions they also clearly state that you don't want to over tighten the screw because that could also cause failure. So you have to be a little bit careful there. For me, I'm not going to worry too much about it. If something happens and something breaks, I'll just have to buy a new wheel, and that'll be that. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. I splurged a little bit more on the pedals and got the Fanatec or Fanatec, I feel like I'm butchering their name over and over. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but one of those two. The Fanatec ClubSport pedals. This is a step above their entry-level set of pedals, and in my opinion, their look really reflects that. The whole thing is machined from aluminum, and it's rigidly fastened to the rig. The brake pedal relies on pressure to convey input to the game as opposed to position via a load cell, just like so it mimics the sensation in a real car. You also have these pretty cool motors on the back of each pedal to convey some vibration feedback if you're going over a rough surface or something. All the pedal resistance is also totally adjustable. This is actually on, I'm pressing pretty substantially here, and that is on the softest setting for this brake pedal. I think the load cell rating for this pedal is about 90 kilograms.
Budget-wise, that's essentially where I stopped for now.
I held back on any type of fancy monitor setup, and I just decided to use a 24-inch 1080p monitor I had lying around the house. That being said, I did purchase a cheap but very effective monitor arm so I could clamp the monitor to the rig, and this is clearly, in my opinion, the biggest drawback to my setup for now. Field of view is pretty low, and there isn't too much of a big sense of speed that you would otherwise get from a VR or a triple screen type setup. However, once you get it dialed in, you get used to it, and it's still a ton of fun. Eventually, I plan on transitioning to a VR style of setup, but given the cost required to do that for both the VR and the requirements to upgrade my computer, it would have easily doubled the cost for this whole setup to begin with. So I'll try this for now, see how much I like it, see how much use I get out of it, and if I'm having tons of fun with it, then maybe I'll make another big upgrade too. For now, I have everything connected to a desktop I've built from about 10 years ago. Various components like the graphics card, memory, and hard drives have been gradually upgraded over time, but I'd probably need to completely gut out it again to handle VR if I go that route. But for now, it's been doing just fine. All these components result in quite a bit of wiring in the back, but it's nothing crazy. Just a little bit of wire management to make sure there's no wires dangling where my legs go, get caught. But yeah, basically mounted everything to the side of the rig where I could. Zip tied a few things. The game I selected to get back into sim racing has been Project Cars 2. It looks like a great entry-level option for sim racing because it's realistic, but you can greatly cater it to your preferences and everything is pretty straightforward to set up. There's also a ton of single-player options, which I've been taking advantage of to just tool around, getting used to everything.
So that's basically it in a nutshell. I'd say I've had about 10 hours so far on the setup, and I love it. It's everything I wanted, and it's a ton of fun. I will leave you with a clip of me driving on the Long Beach street circuit, which is a nice track for a good torture test of everything because there's a bunch of tight turns. Enjoy! All right.
Steady on this outlap, please.
No. And I'm dead.
But there you go.